I have another fantastic topic that keeps coming up over and over again. In fact, I heard it 2 times today, and one of them was actually a friend of mine on Facebook that just posted it, and it's scary because he actually agreed with it. This is nothing against him, because after I explained it to him, he saw why it wasn't quite right. However, a lot of people are missing the boat on this one, and it's very scary. The topic is, of course, if you can read the title, Common Sense Tests for Gun Ownership. Now, let's talk serious for a minute here. It doesn't make sense that somebody that can go out and handle a deadly weapon should have a test before they can do so. I mean, look at motor vehicles. You have to take a test before you can get your driver's license. Why, why, if you're going to go out and handle some dangerous firearm, why shouldn't you have to take a test to do that? Uh, because that goes against history and is completely, absolutely insane to have a test for a right. And I think people forget history when it comes to this, but that happens quite a bit when you look at our current economic situation and what people are spewing on how to fix it. Completely history gets forgotten there. If you look about the Second Amendment, history just goes out the window. We just completely forget it. We must have burned the books or something. If you look at the Fourth Amendment, illegal search and seizures, it's as if we never even had any history on the subject, where people could just break into your house and demand your papers or demand whatever they want to see. I'm sure we don't have any states like that are proposing a law, or proposing a law where you can just stop somebody and ask for their papers. I don't know anybody that would have a state like that. I'm sure it's not the United States of America. But this is where it comes in with the common sense gun test. How many times have I heard this by even pro-gun people? Pro-gun people. I say that with quotes because if you support this, you're not pro-gun. You're confused. Well, you could be pro-gun, but you're just not sure about this issue. And we have a historical example, a very good one that I think people forget when they mention this. But what the proposed thing that people want is, we have all these shootings. It usually happens when they're talking about negligent discharges. The heartbreaking tearjerker story that you'd usually think the liberals would call out to propose some line of nonsense that they want, because they can't deal with facts, of course, so they have to deal with emotions, and we have to tug at the heartstrings. I don't care about that. I don't have a soul, remember? Here we go. The thing they're proposing is, we're going to have common sense gun tests, so people don't have these negligent discharges in these firearm accidents. Like, there was a story where a 7-year-old was shot by his father in a gun store when apparently he decided to point it at him and pulled the trigger, and the gun happened to be loaded. And if we had a competency test before that happened, that would have never happened. And, to which I'm just thinking, yeah, like when we have a driver's test, there's no accidents on the road. But then people say, well, I'm sure there would be less accidents. I'm not entirely sure about that, because I think that if we didn't have the required driver's license, I don't think deaths would go up by 1,000,000,000%, because I think it would be more like this. But again, this is just speculating. This isn't fact. I think it would go something more like this. The roads are a dangerous place. So as a father, as a mother, I'm going to teach my kid how to drive safely before they even get on the road. And that's a little scary giving today's parenting. But then again, compare parents to government. Oh my goodness, there's no comparison there. I would rather take some crack whore mother down in the projects than the government as my parents. But that's a different story. So yeah, let's just have a common sense test, on the safe handling of guns, and then everything will be just fine. Now, personally, here's my view on the subject before we get to the historical examples. I don't think for 1 second, not even a half a second, the problem is that people don't know the fundamentals. Because let's take another look at that driving that's so often brought up. Do you think that I've been in a car accident, by the way? I have been in one car accident in my entire life, and it was due to a very wet parking lot that was angled down into a Ford F-350, and I happened to crash into him because the store owner was too incompetent to have his driveway plowed, so I went down and I slid down into a Ford F-350 a long time ago. It was about a year or two after I got my license, maybe 2 years. So do you think that if I had just studied that DMV book just a little bit more, do you think that that wouldn't have happened? Or another good one is drunk driving. Do you think that people not know that drunk driving is dangerous? Like, they just haven't been taught about that. They just have not been. It's just a mystery. They just don't know. They've never heard, even in this indoctrinated culture where it's slammed in everybody's head every 2 seconds, you will not drink alcohol, because if you do, you are a bad person. Do you think that in that whole culture where it's slammed in everybody's head in every 5 seconds that drinking and driving is terrible and alcohol is bad because people do bad things with it, do you think that they haven't heard that, maybe it's bad? Do you think that they honestly don't know? Or do you think that, what my personal view on the thing is, do you think that just perhaps they just don't always follow the rules? that might be my take on the issue, because do everybody out there who's licensed to drive right now, does every one of you answer honestly, do you always drive with your hands at 10 at 2? I don't think so. In fact, I only drive with one hand, so I'm more at about 11, 10:30ish. I don't even drive with two hands. I never have. It's never been comfortable for me, and I've been doing it just fine all these years, except that one accident, which really doesn't have anything to do with the steering wheel. Now, so yeah, do you think it's that you don't know to put your hands at 10 at 2, or do you 10 and 2, or do you just think that you're not always following the rules because you're complacent, or they just don't always fit in with what you're doing? I would say that it's 2. Now, let's take that into the world of firearms. Do you think that people don't know not to point it at something you don't want to destroy, and not know that every gun is loaded, quote unquote, every gun is loaded? It's not, but for the purposes of the 4 big rules, do they not know that every gun is loaded? Or perhaps, do they not always follow those rules? That's what I would say. And what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Let's say it together. You could have 5 years of training, and as soon as they get out, you're not going to remember everything to the T. That's just the way it is. Let's look at the driving tests that you take. Look how perfect you are on the driving test. You stop at the stop signs. You look both ways. You make sure you made a 3-second stop. You do everything absolutely perfect. The second that driver's ed instructor gets out of the car, you are forgetting all of that. You remember the basics, but you might not always follow them. And honestly, who stops at each stop sign for a perfect 3 seconds each time and looks both ways twice? Nonsense. It's not that you don't know, it's that you don't always perform. So anybody out there that's saying, well, the problem is just that they don't have enough training. No, it's that they don't always follow it. And when they don't follow it, that shows that it's not that you need more training. It's just human nature. Accidents are going to happen. You could require a 2-month training seminar, and as soon as that was done, maybe a month after you got out into the real world, that would be gone. And people always want to say that it's common sense that this needs to happen. Those people must live in the free states. They have to live in the free states, or they're just not paying attention. Because I know in New York, it was common sense to have licensing for pistols. Well, I mean, it's common sense. You don't want criminals having pistols. You don't want convicted felons having pistols. You don't want mentally insane people having pistols. So we have to have a licensing thing. And let's just say I was fine with it, and I'm brutally not. That is the most unconstitutional thing I've ever heard. How people say that licensing pistols is constitutional is absolutely beyond my head. Shall not be infringed. Licensing requires time and money and effort and all that stuff, and that's somehow not infringing things? I think that's a bit nonsense. But let's just say it was. Let's say I agreed with licensing. When it started out, it would be, okay, I need a license. Let's just compare it to the concealed carry licenses in other states. So I go down to my local DMV, I give them my driver's license, they print out a new card. It maybe takes 15 minutes because the DMV's a bit incompetent and the line takes a little bit long, but then you leave in 15 minutes. Okay, we've got our license. That's the inch that we gave them. Okay, we concede, you guys win, we're going to have licenses on our handguns. Okay. That's what it started out as. Do I need to remind you of the process that I went through to get my pistol because, it's common sense here in New York State? Well, I thought it was just you go and give your driver's license. That's correct. It was when they gave them an inch. But after they run 47,000 marathons worth of inches, because since the whole licensing started, I would like to see exactly what the excuse is now. Because if you give them an inch coming from the... I want to get on the rooftop and scream this to people in the free states. If you give them an inch, they're going to take 500 miles. Now it's get applications, go to classes, pay fees, get things notarized, have your references contacted. You better have 4 references. You better have them get their stuff notarized. You have to go put a down payment on a gun. You can't touch a gun. Boom! All of that does nothing whatsoever except what their real underlying goal is, to limit your rights. Just like these common sense tests to own guns. If anybody says, well, I think we should have a basic safety course, and that's the scary thing, it usually does come from the pro-gun people, and those are the dangerous ones because, oh, look, we got a pro-gunner on our side. No, if you think that you should have a safety test required for owning a firearm, you are out of your mind. If you agree in the Second Amendment and stuff like that. And it's scary because those are the ones that are going to be causing the problems from the inside. It's not good at all. Yes, no safety course should be required to own any firearm at all. And in most states, it's not. And yes, there are accidents. There are accidents, just like there's accidents with driving, and we have tests for that. It's not as simple as give a test, the number of deaths will go down. That's absolute nonsense. And talking about history. talking about history, which, again, people forget when there's some sort of issue coming up like this. We had a test at one time for one of our rights. Well, not all of us. Just, again, the ones that they want to control our rights with. We had a test for a right one time, because let's not forget, voting is a right. I seem to remember, though people often forget history, I seem to remember that there used to be a test for voting. But it was common sense test, right? I mean, it was common sense. That's the word. That's the buzzword. Common sense. It was a common sense test. It was a literacy test to see if you were literate. Well, we don't want illiterate people voting. I wouldn't want an illiterate person voting, would you? I don't want illiterate people. So yeah, literacy test. Of course we're going to have a literacy test. Anybody who's literate should not be voting. So of course I'm going to agree with that, because I'm being a sheep right now. Of course, literacy tests, yes. Test tones, guns, yes. Because I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't make any opinions for myself. So yeah, literacy test. That makes a lot of sense. Don't want illiterate people voting. And what did the government do with it? Now, this is going to come as a shocker to you, but we gave them an inch to say literacy tests, and they took 5,000 miles! Yeah! And it was exactly like they're trying to do to push an agenda. I know it's just shocking, right? But if you're unfamiliar, when blacks were given their rights to vote, oh, I hear the dogs barking on the locked door so they don't come in here and mess up my video. When blacks were given the rights to vote, because they had to be given, it was the civil rights movement going on, they finally had won their rights to suffrage. Well, the government wasn't happy with that. Well, at least certain people in the government were. So they put out the whole literacy test thing, and the sheep just, oh yeah, literacy. Well, it didn't quite go as planned like that, because what it was ridiculous tests that no normal citizen could pass. But those were the tests that they gave to questionable people like the African Americans that they didn't know if they were literate or not. Here's an example of one of those tests. You have to repeat the phrase on the sheet in front of you, and if you mispronounce any word in reading it, you cannot vote. You've lost your right to vote. Because, well, it's just common sense. We don't want illiterate people voting, so here it was. Here's the one that they gave to white people. The phrase is, that no person shall be imprisoned for debt. Simple enough. You can't read that, shouldn't be able to vote. Right? Here's the test they gave to black people. Recite this. The income arising from the 16th Section Trust Fund, the Surplus Revenue Fund, until it is called for by the United States government, and the funds enumerated in Section 257 and 258 of this Constitution, together with the special annual tax of 30 cents on each $100 of taxable property in this state, which the legislature shall levy, shall be applied to the support and maintenance. Oh, I already can't vote. I fucked it up. Shall be supplied to the. I'm just practically the most illiterate person there is. Shall be applied to the support and maintenance of the public schools, and it shall be the duty of the legislature to increase the public school fund from time to time as necessary. Therefore, and the condition of the Treasury and the resources of the state may justify, provided that nothing herein contained shall be so construed as to authorize the legislature to levy in any 1 year a greater rate of state taxation for all purposes, including schools, than 65 cents on each $100 worth of taxable property, and provided further that nothing herein contained shall prevent the legislature from first providing for payment of the bonded indemnities of the state and interest herein, then therein out of all the revenue of the state. Isn't that fantastic? But that's a lot longer than the first one. It's almost like the first one was just going to the DMV and providing a driver's license to get a license to have a firearm, and the second one is providing a driver's license, getting 4 references, paying fees, going to classes. Did I just get deja vu? What? Are you saying that we gave the government an inch and they took 10 miles? What? Get out of here! That is unbelievable. Now, if you need any more proof, which history should be proof, but then again, I know why the public schools aren't doing well. It's because of pencils, because every time that, you write something down and it's incorrect, you got to blame the instrument. Every time that there is a problem with something, you don't blame the person, you blame the instrument. Just ask any person that's against gun rights. We'll get to that in a separate video. But yes, if you have any more doubts besides history, or if you didn't know that about the history, now you do. If you need any more doubts as to why you don't need to take a test to exercise a right, there you go. Just compare them to literacy tests. They're both tests for rights, they're both stupid, they both never should have happened, and they both never should happen again in the future. And that's it. Oh, that also goes for people saying, I think you should have to take a test to vote, which even still gets spewed around here nowadays. I'm like, do you people not remember history? Did you not pass like fifth grade U.S. history? Are you serious? But that's our society. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you ever think that it's a good idea to have a test for it again, no, bad boy. Take it easy. Have a nice day.